I'm so grateful for this technology. It has absolutely changed the world for people with diabetes. It enables us to do anything we want to do and do it safely. It enables us to go to sleep at night without worrying about waking up dead in the morning. I can't tell you how many times in my early years after I left home to 10 years on my own as a professional athlete, I went to sleep like, I wonder if tonight's going to be the night I die. If you have a glucose, of 100 and flat right now, and you have a banana, but you did a run this morning, your glucose might only go to 120. So where you are in your own kind of speed of your metabolism is going to have a direct correlation on how your body reacts to anything you put into the body. On December 19th, 2020, they came in with a good offer of $1.5 million, but they wanted the valuation to be at $19 million. So they could take more than, and they wanted warrants to get over 10% of the company. I said, but for 6 weeks, we've been talking about something. And now at the last minute, when I've got 2 weeks of cash in the bank, you're going to offer me half? Like, this is unethical.
Excellent, Phil. It's good to see you. I'm excited to do this discussion together. I've been following Supersapiens for a lot of time, and I'm really excited about the CGM space. So it's exciting to have you here. And then for the listeners, why don't we start by what is Supersapiens doing today, and then transition into the prehistory. What were you doing before, I believe, and then how did you start cycling? That would be a very interesting one too.
Okay, so Supersapiens were introducing people to the opportunity to master their metabolism for desired outcome. Many people think we're just for the elite athlete, helping them run faster, ride faster, swim faster. But athletes can't run faster, ride faster, swim faster if they don't manage their weight, if they don't sleep properly, if they don't have glucose stability throughout the day. And so really this 24/7 fitness tool that's used to educate you on what everything does to your body from a metabolic standpoint. And then through trial and error, learn what works best for you so that you can be the best of yourself. Whether that's giving a public speech, doing a podcast, or going out to set your personal best and whatever competition you're trying to do. It's been a good journey. We've learned a lot so far. We've made a lot of mistakes, and by we, I mean I, because I'm the CEO. So any mistakes that the company's made means that I approve them. So smarter now than we were at the beginning. Excited for what's to come in the future. But, I guess to your second question of what was I doing before? Yeah, before is kind of still my job. Also, I'm the CEO and co-founder as well of Team Novo Nordisk. It's an all diabetic professional cycling team. And it was a business plan class project 18 years ago in college. It was the Team Type 1 Foundation, which we began. That's where I first started using continuous glucose monitoring as I put an all Type 1 diabetic team to race across America in 2006. We got across the country in 5 days, 16 hours, 4 minutes. We learned, I'm a Type 1 diabetic for 41 years, but the first day and a half of that race, I learned more about where I felt best with glucose than I had in my entire career. Well, 140 to 180, I performed the best. We went a lot faster. We set a world record, and it really proved that sport could be a platform to, change the way people look at diabetes. And when Team Type 1 started, diabetes was a doom and gloom disease. It was heavily stigmatized. It was a disease of all the things you could not do. And through the platform of sport, Team Type 1 and now Team Novo Nordisk have proven with good control of glucose, with good control of your metabolism, i.e. what all the target customers of Supersapiens, it's the same for all of us, right? We all have metabolic dysfunction. We all have opportunity to improve our metabolism. But with the cycling teams, it was with good control of your glucose, you can do anything. And I'm really proud of how the world now views people with diabetes. And it's my sporting organizations that have kind of paved that way. Now there's a lot of other leaders and other heroes in every sport, every walk of life. But you can really say Team Type 1 was the pioneer of that. And my athletes, Team Novo Nordisk, they're racing in the Tour of Poland today against the best athletes in the world, all with diabetes. They're the reason Supersapiens was invented, because it was great that we had a continuous glucose monitor in our jersey pocket, but a CGM in your jersey pocket is not data you can take action off of. So I've been working since 2009 to get it on the bike computer. And it was finally Chip Hawkins, the CEO of Wahoo Fitness, who hacked it for me. And December 12th, 2018, I started riding with glucose on my bike computer. And in 15 days of doing that, I learned more about precision fueling of insulin nutrition timing than in my entire career. Gave it on the athletes at Team Novo Nordisk. We went faster. We changed how we ate. We changed when we ate. We changed when we dosed insulin, all because of having real-time data during activity. And to me, it was like, this is the best invention I've ever had. Let's bring it to market. And that was February 4th, 2019, was when I founded Supersapiens. It was TT1 Products is our company name. You can see, like, I've got TT1 Holdings as the shell company for Team Novo Nordisk, Team Type 1, TT1 Products. So everything for me kind of centers around the first early invention of Team Type 1. And really, it's using sport as a platform for inspiration, using sport and now data as a platform to validate the importance of activity, and let's get people moving. That's what I love about Terra is, like, you guys, you help connect so many different, pillars of data to help people be the best of themselves. And that's what we need. We need an active community because, it's my firm belief in this day and age, more than any time prior, health is wealth. And I really fundamentally believe that activity, it's not the only thing, but it's the fundamental core pillar of spreading health to society. And activity it's engaging, it's addicting, it creates friendships, it creates bonds. And collectively with, all of your customers at Terra and all of our partners at Supersapiens, all the athletes that we, work with, is we can inspire more people to be active and spread that wealth to the world through passion, which that's what this community is all about, right?
Can you speak a bit about how CGMs were back then that you mentioned? How did you use the CGM? And then how did your experience change until today?
So the first time I used a CGM was in 1999. And I had Medtronic was the company. They inserted a sensor into my back. I don't know if the spine or not, but it was
Like
taken.
a big needle, or how was it?
A big needle went in, and the thing was attached and taped to my back for 3 days. I did 2 bike races. And mind you, when I was a kid, I used to check my glucose 4 times in the hour before a bike race, finger 6, not to find out where it was, but more the trend. I was looking at which direction I was going to make sure I was safe. Then I saw crazy numbers in the bike races. I was like, I was at 350. What? Huh? No wonder I felt bad there. No wonder. But I didn't get that data until 5 days later at the doctor's office. So they removed it. They downloaded it. I had to come in 2 days after that. And I got to see 3 days of tracings. And it was like, interesting. So that was my first CGM experience. Fast forward to 2005, my doctor, Bruce Bodie, he's had his fingers on every new drug, every new device in the diabetes world for the last 40 years. He's one of the smartest doctors I've ever worked with. I'm so grateful he's my doctor. Because I struggled. I had really good hemoglobin A1Cs, which is your diabetes report card, but I had a lot of really bad hypoglycemias. And that's the thing that can kill you now, can kill you in the middle of the night. And so when CGMs were coming to be kind of consumer facing, he put me on the first trial with the Dexcom 3, it was called. I got 3 days of data, had to calibrate it with blood sugar, 2 or 3 times a day. I didn't really understand the algorithm, right? It was because, I'd see glucose going up, and then I'd give insulin, and then, there was a lag, which I hadn't understood the lag at that point. So then I give more insulin, then glucose comes crashing down, then I eat food, and then eat, and then it still says low. So then I eat more food, and then glucose goes way up. And so I only had 3 days. It wasn't enough time to learn. Then when that study ended, I got put on a device called the Freestyle Navigator, it was a 40-day trial. 20 days were blinded, meaning I had it in my arm. The sensor was like about that big. Well, let me rephrase. Yeah, trying to show it. That big. It was about that thick. Had to put a bunch of tape over it. It was 2 parts. It lasted for 5 days. It took 12 hours after insertion before you started to see the data. And once I got the data, like the first 3 days were similar to my experience on the other CGM. But then I started to learn, okay, so keep doing things the way I'm doing, but I started making much smaller adjustments in my life rather than waiting till my glucose is 200 and giving 7 units of insulin.
Yeah.
I'd give, 1 unit of insulin when I saw my glucose at 120 going up. And then, so I was dosing not to where my glucose was, but to where it was going, kind of like Wayne Gretzky in hockey, right? So I'd give an insulin dose at 120, my glucose would hit 150, and I'd come back down to 100. And on the flip side, if I saw glucose with 100 trending down, instead of in the old days waiting till I was shaky and low, I'd see 100 trending down. I'd eat 10 grams of carbohydrates. By the time my glucose hit 80, I'd come back up to 100, which was right where I wanted to be. So over the first 20 days on this device, I learned more about my metabolism. Yeah. And mind you, I checked my glucose with finger pricks 140,000 times by the time I was 25 years old. I've been obsessed about glucose my entire life. I wanted, first, not to go blind. And second, I wanted to be in the Tour de France. I wanted to be a professional athlete. And to do that as a diabetic, you have to, diabetes is a job as well. So I had to master this job of diabetes for the sake of achieving my goals in life. So with that said, I knew a lot about the disease, knew a lot about metabolism, but I got so much exponentially smarter in such a short time that when I had this idea for Race Across America as an all diabetic team, look, people said, you're crazy. An all diabetic team to Race Across America, that is impossible. I was like, well, yeah, thank you, but I'm going to do it. And then it was, well, how much is it going to cost? I was like, it's $250,000. Phil, you're 23. You look like you're 16. Like, no one's going to give you any money for this. I was like, yeah, thank you, but now I'm going to do it. And when I had Abbott's device, the Freestyle Navigator, I knew we had to have this. Number one, and then number two, Bruce Bodie told me, like, Abbott's got, they're a big company, they could sponsor you. And he introduced me to a woman by the name of Holly Culp, who was the senior vice president of their, in vivo division at the time. And, January 25th, 2006, I went and pitched Holly and the Navigator team on what I wanted to do, that I wanted to win. And, over maybe 2 or 3 glasses of wine for her that night, she committed to funding the team one way or the other. And, that's where I say my journey really began. She pushed this little speck of snow that was an idea down the mountain. And then it just continued growing in momentum and also impact over the years to come. But I'm so grateful for this technology. It has absolutely changed the world for people with diabetes. It enables us to do anything we want to do and do it safely. It enables us to go to sleep at night without worrying about waking up dead in the morning. I can't tell you how many times in my early years after I left home to 10 years on my own as a professional athlete, I went to sleep like, I wonder if tonight's gonna be the night I die. I had those nights thousands of times, but fortunately it didn't happen. Knock on wood, and like the title of my book, Not Dead Yet. It's like, this technology removes all that fear, and it's not perfect yet, but it's getting a lot better. And it's now got to the place where we can take this technology and start focusing on prevention. And prevention means understanding the metabolism of people without diabetes. And what's been really cool for me, and I'll shut up because I'm sure you have a host of questions, is I've learned so much from the metabolisms of people without diabetes that I've now applied to my daily life, which have made me even better. I probably have a better understanding of metabolism than 99.9999% of people in the world. But I've been able to optimize even better because of the people without diabetes who've been brave enough to try sensors and become the early adopters of the new wave of health for society. So for that, for those who use us, I want to say thank you, because you've made me even sharper, which I didn't think was possible.
And would you say that that personal need was really what created the idea for you of Supersapiens, or did you have also you always wanted to create a business behind this?
Yeah, I always both, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been blessed with my career at Team Type 1 and Team Novo Nordisk, and to have owned a professional sporting team for 18 years, it's been, I've done well, right? But it's not something you exit from. And as a kid in college, I grew up poor. Graduated college with a bunch of student debt. Like I really idolized entrepreneurs as a kid, and seeing people who built something from nothing, and then either built enduring companies that one helped a lot of people, and two made a lot of money. But also the others who had big exits and then went and started investing in other entrepreneurs and helping them to have their own success stories. So I was fortunate to get blessed with the product, right? I had the product first. And the fact that, again, I own a professional cycling team, and what happens in the Tour de France every year, one athlete bonks on one day and his race is over, right? He has one bad day, and here's a guy who the rider thinks he's going to win. He goes into the race planning on victory. The team thinks that rider is going to win. The team owner has been telling the sponsors and all of their partners and all of the fans that athlete's going to win. And then they make one mistake on fueling on stage 9, and all those dreams are done. And they lose $350 million worth of marketing publicity because of not taking a $2 gel at the right time in the race. So I knew the problem we could solve for that ecosystem of cycling, which is a very fragile ecosystem. And frankly, we came to market to prevent the bonk. Right? That was what we thought we were going to solve for. But then in the early days of trial, we didn't even have an app. So we were putting traditional glucose sensors on people without diabetes. And there was this everyday Iron woman who she had done 2 previous Ironman events, failed in her goal miserably. Followed every program her coach told her. She did all the training. Her power numbers said she was ready. Her running time said she was ready, but she failed in her events. And working mom, full-time job, managing 20 plus hours a week of training, where she then said not reach her goals was devastating psychologically. And so we put a sensor on her 4 days before her third Iron Woman, and we saw that her glucose was low. Of course, she wasn't eating enough because she was doing a full-time job, managing family, all this training. Her glucose was in the 60s. We said, hey, Jane, 60s. We said, eat. For the next 3 days, eat as many carbohydrates as your body can stomach. So she got her average glucose up to 100. And then she did that event, and she broke her personal record by 3 hours. Right. And she said she felt better in the final stages of that run than she'd felt in any other event she's ever done, marathon, half marathon, or Ironman, half Ironman, et cetera. And she said it was the fueling. I had to fuel my body. It's like, oh, wait a sec. We can help people prepare for their events by helping them guide glucose fueling in the days before. So we kind of unlocked a new wave of value for our consumers. And then, the next phase was, glucose stability for recovery. Because if your glucose is going up, then you produce insulin that increases inflammation, then it goes down, then you eat food, so that you gain weight from that. So by helping with glucose stability, we could help solve for recovery. Then 40% of our consumers lost weight, and they were really happy with the change in body image, and they credited CGM for that, Supersapiens for that. And then the latest nut we've cracked is sleep. And glucose stability overnight for sleep equates to a better night of sleep. And what is the number one tool for recovery in sport? Right? It is sleep, period. And so, it's kind of like, we came out trying to solve this one small problem that only applied to people who rode their bikes for 6 hours or more for day after day after day after day. And you can say sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and been lucky that metabolism is incredibly complex and that there's so many different areas of life that you can optimize with it. And so I'm really proud of the work my team has done, my science team, our scientific advisors, and our partners to really help kind of unlock these new value adds that come with continuous glucose monitoring. And we've made a big headway so far, but I know there's probably 40 new lessons to come in the next 2 years, and it's about finding which of those are most meaningful and really ensuring we dive deep in the learnings so that we can do a great job on the education, which is critical.
Mm-hmm. And then in those first athletes that you're getting to help them perform better, did you already had the Abbott partnership from then, or was it an approach where you're getting the sensors to see if there is a product to make?
So the Abbott partnership really started in, it was June. Yeah, I founded the company February 4th, 2019. I had a functional product, right? Because we hacked sensors. So I had
Yep.
glucose on my computer. That's what my team was using. And so I went to Abbott and said, I want to, I've wanted to bring it to people with diabetes. That was the initial goal, but the regulatory complexities of that were quite complex. And so I wanted a faster path to market, and went to Abbott and said, I'd like to bring this to the non-diabetic sports and fitness market. And they were talking about setting up a new division, thinking about what's the pathway outside of diabetes. And, there were some visionaries at the company who thought that sport could be a great platform to open the door to CGM outside of the diabetes space. So I had a verbal / email of, the CEO has approved this on June 19th, 2019. And it was about, 6 months of raising capital, trying to get the contract closed. And then it was April, I guess, end of March, early April of 2020, right as the entire world was shutting down, that I finally had the contract signed.
Mm.
Could finally actually take money on, because I had a bunch of, like, probably $4 million circling the business, but I wasn't going to take anyone's money until I had the Abbott contract.
Yep.
And then I got the Abbott contract and all that money disappeared. That was a really good time for me, like, back in hindsight. But once we had the contract signed, I had a great CTO to start off, and Gagan built a great team that in, call it, 5 months, we got a product. No, we started building the app in April, and then had a commercially viable app in September. And Jumbo Visma was the very first cycling team that was using it. They've now won the last two Tour de France races, amongst many other races. But those were the kind of the pioneers, the early adopters for us, were, the guys who you now see winning the biggest races in the world.
Mm-hmm. And that partnership with Abbott, did you, because I received, you sent me these sensors, so thanks a lot for them. What I noticed is actually they are different. My impression is they are different because I could take real-time data streamed to my phone, whereas I didn't have this before by using the usual freestyle Abbott. So did they create a separate sensor for you, or was it the same?
They created a separate brand for me. And the sensor, it's essentially the same technology as the Freestyle Libre 2. So that 5 million people around the world are using every day to dose their insulin and manage their diabetes. But what I needed was, minute by minute Bluetooth. And so they had the capability within the sensor to do that. So that was a software adjustment they made for me with the Libre Sense. And that gave us the minute by minute Bluetooth, which was key for consistent data readings, on your Garmin, on your Wahoo bike computer, places that we wanted to send the data to.
Excellent. And then in the first product you mentioned, what was the user experiencing? Was it a minimum viable product approach, or did you have a lot of features at the beginning?
So if you don't have any knowledge about glucose, you could say it's a minimum viable product experience. Here's your glucose, here's the trend. We didn't have any integrations. If you wanted to put events in, it was all manual. So it was cumbersome to begin. But for me, someone who's been using CGM, essentially I've had sensors on my arm since 2005. This was the best product I ever had. And my glucose control got a whole lot better. So it's still like that. Except it's a much better product than it was back then. The integrations are a lot easier. The education that we provide to consumers in the early days is much more robust, and things that we've learned from the early days and from the science and from the data. But at the end of the day, it's glucose, trend, and then it's up to you to figure out what you do. Because, if I have a glucose of, call it 100 and flat, and I have a banana, let's just pretend I don't have diabetes, right? When I have a banana, maybe I go to 200 based on where I am today metabolically. if you have a glucose, of 100 and flat right now, and you have a banana, but you did a run this morning, your glucose might only go to 120. So, where you are in your own kind of speed of your metabolism is going to have a direct correlation on how your body reacts to anything you put into the body. So I'd love to have a product that you put on your arm and I tell you exactly what to do, but it's complex. There's in a single person, like in a control day after day after day, there's 42 different factors that affect your blood glucose. But then if said person does a 1 hour run, then a 2 hour bike ride, then a day off, your metabolism is going to be either on hyperdrive or maybe it's going to be on recovery mode. So it's going to be different depending on what you've done and how much movement you put in. So there's a time and a place in the future where with artificial intelligence and machine learning, we'll be able to better understand what you've done and then better predict, what's going to happen. But we're still in the early stages. And for right now I don't know if you got the chance to use it for a month or not, but
I did, yeah.
To play with it, there's still a lot of learning. It's self-exploration. It's you becoming your own scientist for what works for you as a human.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, by working closely with athletes, if you have two athletes that are doing exactly the same activity, they are eating in a very similar way, is it always that their insulin sensitivity and changes in their glucose levels are always different? Or are there also similarities between athletes that are doing exactly the same thing?
There's some athletes that have similarities, right? So I think we can break people down into 3 different glucotypes. So 3 different types of responders. And there's probably 20, but 3 is a good, you're in this bucket, that bucket, that bucket. But physiologically, there's changes as well. So, some people, stress causes a big impact on their glucose, right? Bobby Julich, right? Olympic medalist, podium guy at the Tour de France. He's been with us, almost 3 years now. I love Bobby. Amazing guy because he just keeps experimenting all the time. I laugh because he gets in the car with his wife and she apparently drives like a maniac, Angela. And I say this with respect, Angela. His glucose goes to 200 every time he gets in the car with her. That's his stress response. I get in a car, drive with someone like a maniac, my glucose stays very stable. Like I don't have any metabolic response to stress. So you could have very similar physiological profiles, but then the mental and cognitive response also comes in. So that's where it does get pretty complex. So we do see patterns, right? And we did a study with SD Works, and you looked at 9 different riders over 7 days of training camps, and we saw all of their data points along a graph, and it was just like you'd taken paint and just thrown it at the graph because it was all over the place. Like every covering of the graph had different data points because the girls were all so individual. What we do see that's kind of very similar is you need to eat 3 hours before a big endurance event. 3 hours or farther away, 3 to 4 hours. Otherwise, you're going to have and we just had a paper published earlier this week, actually, that showcased the reactive hypoglycemia people get when they eat within 2 hours of activity. The other thing that we see is insulin kind of desensitivity, when you finish an activity. And think of you're eating food, your body is pumped your muscle glycogen and liver glycogen into the bloodstream to feed the muscles. When you stop a workout, all of the muscle receptors for glucose shut off. And so they're trying to get into the muscles to feed it for fuel, but those receptors have shut off. So that goes into the bloodstream. So you see this period of elevated glucose for about 90 minutes after activity, at which point the receptors open up again and the metabolism speeds up, the insulin sensitivity speeds up, and glucose comes down 90 minutes post-activity and then goes in a period of harmony afterwards because you were active. Final kind of piece of that's pretty consistent amongst all users is the dawn phenomenon. And this has been known in diabetes for a lot of years where people wake up and they get a big glucose spike just by waking up. Well, we see that same similarity in people without diabetes. And think of it like I dose 2 types of insulin, right? As a diabetic. I have a basal insulin, which I give twice per day. which gives me a very stable background. So if I ate nothing throughout the day, my glucose would stay about 90, right? So just stay flat. And then I've got a rapid insulin, which is called bolus in diabetes. So if I call it drink a Coke, which I only drink Coke when I'm on the bike, but we'll use it as an example. If I know I'm going to drink a Coke, like right now, my glucose is 117. So I'd probably get 5 units of insulin to right this moment if I was going to drink the Coke in 20 minutes, right? Because I'd want my glucose going down to drink the Coke to kind of keep it stable. So that's the rapid insulin. You as a person without diabetes, right, is that basal, as you go to sleep at night, your basal is going to be reduced, like lower and lower and lower and lower. So you have this kind of shortage of background insulin in the morning. Then you wake up and your body gets a cortisol and a stress response of wake up. And then your glucose is going to spike up. And so if you eat, call it a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, your glucose is going to go up to into the 200s. Versus if you had that same bowl of oatmeal at lunchtime, you might only go up to 160 because at lunchtime, your basal is reintroduced into the system. So, which I know I'm speaking gibberish to a lot of people out there, and I apologize for that. And this is kind of the realities of the metabolism and learning how to kind of gamify your own metabolism. It's so complex that it's going to take work, and it's going to take, you can't change everything. If your glucose went really high in a training, change everything the next day. No, you change one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And then the effect is. Then change one thing at a time and see what the effect is. And then eventually you get to a place of, this is the food I need to eat. This is when I need to eat it. This is how much I need during activity. This is what I have to have for recovery. This is when I need to eat before sleep to get perfect night's sleep, et cetera, et cetera. But this is my game. And I love the game of metabolism. I love the fact that there's now so many thousands of people obsessed about glucose, kind of like I am.
Yeah.
Exciting.
As you're describing this, I'm thinking, because I was looking at my data as well, and every morning my glucose goes up before I eat anything. And then I have a black coffee and it goes even higher. So is this a cortisol response, a stress response maybe when I wake up?
It's, there might be other factors in play, but it'd be interesting to see, how that response changes over time. Because I know when I get, really fit and I've lowered my basal rate a lot, when I wake up to have a black coffee, I'll need, 6 units of insulin just for black coffee. It's like, there's no sugar, there's no carbohydrates, but it's, that's what I have to give for black coffee. Now, other times when, I have a higher basal rate, and I can control all this, right? Artificially, which is, I call diabetes my superpower, is that, I can have black coffee and need nothing. So it's, try it after different exercise periods to like be active for 3 days, see how that coffee affects you, then maybe take 2 days rest, see how the coffee affects you, and just continue the experiment. But what you're talking about is completely normal.
You mentioned earlier that you were in the process and waiting for the partnership with Abbott, and then you were also doing the fundraising. How did you approach fundraising? How did you approach investors? And then how did you bring it up to them? What was your approach in fundraising? And then what was the first thing you did after you closed it?
So I put my own money in first, right? This was such a crazy idea that, if I didn't put my money where my mouth is, then who else was going to believe? So I put $500,000 in to start hiring the first few employees. And, so started paying salaries, started building the product, getting legal bills done, building the brand, and started working with, I built my scientific advisory board kind of first, and then, reached out to leaders in sport. So like, Thomas Dimitrov, who's the general manager of the Falcons, Atlanta Falcons, a American football team here in Atlanta, Georgia, good friend of mine. We've ridden bikes for a bunch of years. He saw the value of this, not just for his athletes, but the staff of the Falcons, right? These guys who live crazy hours and, should a $2 mistake, $2 stack lead to, losing the Super Bowl at a critical moment. Like, okay, I understand the value. So he hooked me up with David Brailsford, the principal of Team Ineos, R.C. Buford, the CEO of the Spurs, Brian Cashman, the general manager of the Yankees. And those guys all got it. Like, yeah, we don't know what it is, but there's something here. So once I had some kind of players in the sports world involved, then it made it easier. I had a friend locally who went to my kid's school who put in a $350,000 check, and that was a victory. And it was a lot of 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 25,000, a lot of small tickets in the kind of the first note that we did. It was a cap of 15 million, 20% discount going into the A. We thought, my whole story for the past 4 years is going into the A, but the A is really coming now. It's just right. You heard that here first. The A is really coming now. In total, I was aiming to raise 3.5. We ended up bringing in 4.5. And it was September 17th, the day we launched, that I closed the round. And I was so happy. It was like, we had a bottle of champagne in the morning. We're looking at when people started buying product, and like, we still had our first customer. We had our second customer. We had our third customer. And I got on with one of my key mentors of many years, Robert Oranger. He goes, all right, so you launched, I said, yeah, we just closed the round. I said, so I'm taking a break from fundraising. He said, no, you're not. So what do you mean? He goes, your next round starts now. Start having conversations. The iron's hot. Go start going. So I listened to Robert, and I started working on the next bit of capital. This was an interesting period because I really wanted institutional capital, and we had a firm in the sports kind of space that we were targeting a 40 million valuation. We thought that was the first one was pre-launch. So now we've launched, we're on market. Let's raise it a little bit higher. And of course, all valuations were crazy at that time. Like 40 was a good step up. And for 6 weeks, Phil, the term sheet's coming next week. Phil, the term sheet's coming next week. Phil, the term sheet's coming next week. And when they did all this while we were burning all of our capital. And so on December 19th, 2020, they came in with a good offer of $1.5 million, but they wanted the valuation to be at $19 million. So they could take more than, and they wanted warrants to get over 10% of the company. I said, but for 6 weeks, we've been talking about something. And now at the last minute, when I've got 2 weeks of cash in the bank, you're going to offer me half. Like, this is unethical. Well, what choice do you have, Phil? And I said, respectfully, I'm going to pass. And they said, what? And I said, no, I don't like the way this business was done. And so I passed, and I liquidated the next chunk of my long-term savings, and I put another $1 million into the company. And then we had breathing room. We had 2 months of runway at the time. And the next week this was January 6th, 2021, a small Swiss investment group, Michael Hartwig, Micah Ventures, other Remy Dushin and others, came in with 600,000. And then I know you've had Eric Menn on your podcast. Eric said, Phil, how you doing? I said, well, I'm struggling for fundraising. He goes, you need help? I said, yeah. And so Eric, till early February 2021, Eric brought on about 10 of his friends, peers, investors at Swift. And I did a Zoom call with them. And 2 weeks later, had another $2.5 million. And once that happened, then this Swiss startup group, which is now Serpentine Ventures, they came in and brought, between them and their LPs, another $1 million. And then I got a 500,000 ticket from somebody else, and a 500,000 ticket from somebody else, and closed a $8.5 million round, call it, end of April, early May of 21. And then the pain really began. Like, for 2 weeks, we have money, we are golden. We've got this Abbott contract. We're in discussions with Abbott Ventures. Sales are going to start going up, but we blew so much money on brand and brand awareness with, investment in Ironman, investment in Swiss startup, in Tour de Swiss, the Giro d'Italia, and the list goes on of places we spent money and athletes we sponsored to really get the brand out there. And then it became clear in like July of 2021 that we're out of money again. I'm like, wait, like how? Again, this is me and my CFO. We've grown together. We've learned to communicate together. And like I'm like, Jay, I need bad news really early. Otherwise, if I don't get bad news, I can't make a plan B. So, that was a very painful time. And I think between Jay and I over the next 3 months, I know I went to the bank to make payroll for the company, 3 times between July and November. And it was November 19th when the first Abbott check closed, November 19th, 2021. And getting them on board as a partner was so critically important. I actually passed on Google Ventures to take Abbott Ventures. And I'm glad I did, because Abbott Ventures has been absolutely our best partner to date. But then you're a company we had a bunch of marketing expense. So we had a bunch of AP. And so then we closed on another $6 million round. But guess what? A lot of that's got to go to inventory and go to accounts payable. So, hey, we're broke again. And then it took another 6 months to raise the next $6 million, of which I put more money into that round, and I made payroll another 3 times in that period, going to my bank and, putting a home equity line on my house so that I can, ensure my employees get paid. And that happened. And then September, call it October of last year, I finally got my first paycheck at Supersapiens. And, so I worked 3.5 years for free. Actually, I paid $1 million per year for the pleasure of going to work. Which is good because I'm heavily invested in the company and I still believe in our growth. So I'm going to get paid back in spades for that money in time. But there were some tough times. I mean, building a company, like I heard war stories from entrepreneurs of this, that, and the other about being at death's door. And most of them have been at death's door once, right? And they have one really bad moment and then they bounce back. Like we've been at death's door 20 times. And people within the company, an investor here, an investor there, my own capital, no, this product and this vision that we have, it's like, we're not going to let some little BS problems, a little lack of capital today, end us. I believe in the future. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, just like at the start, and see where we go. So we're just closing our final, now the third $6 million round I've done in the last year and a half on the same terms, which I think in this kind of day and age is like, I'm actually proud of that. Same terms that I closed in April of 22, closed again June of last year, closed again now. But this has been the longest and hardest period to raise this capital that I've ever been through. And normally you're struggling as a founder for 2-3 months, and then you get some tailwind and then it comes. I got pretty much 9 months of no's. Just because of where the market was. And it's the most difficult time to raise capital in the last 40 years, blah, blah, blah. Those are just excuses. If you don't make the right pitch, you don't find the right people, then you're going to fail. But I'm stubborn, right? And I was a bike racer and I've been a diabetic, and I was a short kid with no money in college. So you had to fail a lot if you wanted to succeed. So I've just kind of embraced every failure we've made and every no that I've heard from potential investors as, right, cool. You passed. Thank you. That means someone does not believe in me. Let's go find the next one who does. And I've been fortunate that I've had enough next ones who did, that were here. And, we're now planning for our US launch, which I'm super excited about. And that's, where the hockey stick turns. And, the time is now. But time is always now when you're the founder of the company, right?
Yeah. The whole game is perseverance, right? For raising that amount of capital, what do you think the investors believed in? Is like what kind of entrepreneurs learn from you when it comes to how they should be pitching, and how do they get in front of these investors?
So one, referrals are key, right? It's who do you know, right? And so anytime someone would say no to me, it would be, well, do you know anyone in the space, right? And maybe they make lukewarm introductions to 2 people, those people are at least going to take the meeting, right? And then you give the pitch, and then maybe those two pass, but those two equal 4 now. And then you give 4 pitches, and those 4 equals 16. And so kind of just staying at it and trying to dedicate, like, I sold life insurance out of college. It's like, you had to have 10 meetings a week. If you're going to get 3 meetings the next week, if you're going to get 1 close the week after. And it's that same numbers game in capital raising. And then when it comes to the story, no, I still tell the same story because, look, I need 2.2 million customers and we do $1 billion in revenue. Right? There's 100 million Strava customers who would all benefit from using Supersapiens. There's 3 million Zwift consumers who, when we do an integration with Zwift, will all get faster and fuel better and feel better while on the bike for using Supersapiens. I know that our product is the golden solution for the consumer. I know the education for how to do it is not yet there. I know the simplicity in the app is not yet there, but we're 4.5 years old, right? We're so young in this journey that to have exclusive relationship with Abbott Laboratories, no 4-year-old company has it. I had it at 3. And to have Abbott Ventures on board, when they came on board, like, no, not possible. To get a commercial deal with Abbott as a 1-person company, as a 3-person company, that stuff never happens, but it did. So you just as a founder or on the founding team, you have to believe, right? And you have to challenge each other, right? And you have to be willing to take feedback and take critique and kind of sharpen your pitch over and over. But at the very core, it's, one, do you believe? Right. And I don't think pathological optimism is something I've been accused of before. And I take that, yes, I'm pathologic optimistic. I have to be. I was told I'd be dead by 25. I was told I'd be blind by 25. I was told none of my dreams were ever possible. So, like, okay, doubt me. I'm okay. I'm going to believe because that's the only path forward. Second, you got to surround yourself with a good team. Like, and I've had some of my past team members try to stab me in the back, and they're gone now. So hire slowly. Don't hire people because of their name. Do your diligence before you hire anyone. And then the second you smell a snake, you cut its head off. Because this small startup world, you cannot have anyone on the team that you cannot trust. And and that goes with investors as well. Investors are part of your team. So again, do your diligence on the people who you're going to take capital with. I've had some amazing investors like Eric Men from Zwift, Chip Hawkins from Wahoo, right? Those guys are competitors now, but they've each given me such like magnitudes of advice for how to build companies, how to build teams, how to raise capital from different viewpoints. They've been 2 of the best investors I've ever had. I've had others who all they wanted to do is come in and just smash my brain, on a daily basis of everything I was doing wrong. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand the full picture. You don't understand the vision. So just be careful of who you let into your inner circle. You've got to do your diligence as much as people are doing diligence on you to determine if they're going to invest in you, then you've got to do that same back to them. Because once you get an investor, they're your partner for a long period of time. A lot of them will be very supportive and try to help you, but some are going to be a pain in the ass. And you just got to take the good with the bad. And then finally is what is profit, right? It's great to have a product, but you have to build a model towards profitability, right? And that comes from burning capital. Right? Keep burn low if you're in the early days. Right. We burned way too much, way too early. My fault, all my fault. I'll take that on the chin right here. But beyond that is like be slow and methodical and focus. Because if you try to do too much, you're going to be scattered and you're going to fail at everything. But if you focus on 3 things, then success, success, success. And then those 3 things, you can then focus on the next 3 things. And that you build this kind of foundation of execution. It's something I wish we had implemented earlier at the company. We're very disciplined about it now, but the fact that we weren't disciplined about it early means we missed on a lot of opportunities or, just chase things that were these little magic fairy dust out there that led to nothing. And, and the world of startup time is of the essence. So any minute wasted is a minute that you're not earning capital, earning reputation, or earning the trust of new investors.
Phil, I wanted to also ask you before we close about what do you think is going to happen in terms of sensors? Would you expect to have more sensors in the market or less? and then adding more data to Supersapiens? And then what is the future? What should we expect within the next 5 years?
So sensors, yeah, I think you're going to see a flood of sensors coming onto the market. You look, Abbott, it's taken them a long time, but they're now doing $5 billion in revenue per year, growing at 25%, I think, with the last earnings call, 25% on the sensor sales year over year. They keep investing in new manufacturing. So then there's Dexcom, who they just had, their record quarter, I think 900 million, or I don't know, much revenue that Dexcom had. So there's these two behemoths of companies that have proven that there's a market for this technology. There's models that work. And once you have that there, then others are going to try to come in. Now, it's going to take time for people to get sensors as accurate as Abbott and Dexcom. Abbott and Dexcom have proven the model. Abbott invested so much in manufacturing early, so they're prepared for kind of global scale. There's companies like Senseonics who have an implantable sensor, which is quite interesting. I'm a fan of their technology. Medtronic's been in the space for a lot of years. So those are four that are commercially available today. You see microneedle companies that are kind of in play. The question is, can you build an accurate sensor? Yes, a lot of people will be able to build an accurate sensor. Can you build 1,000 accurate sensors? Right. Can you build 10,000 accurate sensors? Can you build 10 million accurate sensors? That's where it really gets challenging, because the amount of investment required to get to the point that you can build 10 million accurate sensors it's in the billions of dollars. So it's going to take someone who's going to need to be really creative, really smart, and have really good backing to build companies to scale to the levels of Abbott. With that said, I hope they do, because that means more competition is going to force every company to get better. It's going to force the prices to come down, and that's going to make the technology, easier to adopt by a broader consumer. So, I feel like I'm in a really strong position based on my relationship with Abbott. They're the best company out there. They believed in me in 2006, pushed a small speck of snow, which created a big snowball. And then I came to them with a new idea, which is sensors for people without diabetes. They pushed that small speck, and now you see the spread of metabolic health using sensors that is like growing like wildfire in the world. So I love the company. They like me some of the time, and I try to push to help them to get them to like me more all the time, because I know that 7 billion people in the world need to be on their sensor, and I think sport and activity can be the platform to do so. Data is key, right? A glucose graph on its own is like you're watching a river, right? But when you throw a stick in the river and you see where it goes, or you put a boat and see which direction, probably a bad analogy, but data without context is meaningless. So when you have just glucose data, it's interesting. But when you have glucose data in correlation to a meal, right, then you see exactly what that meal did, exactly how long it lasted for me. Glucose data for exercise, phenomenal. Now you can learn what adjustments you need to make to have better levels during exercise. Glucose for sleep, and so the more different correlations of data that we can bring in, because for me, exercise is the most important. For someone else, it might be sleep. For someone else, it might be breakfast. For someone else, it might be coffee. There's all these like key things that are important to people. Like for a CEO who's trying to go close on a massive deal, his or her glucose better be perfect when they're making that pitch. If not, then you're not at the best of yourself from a cognitive function standpoint. So learning how to optimize your body for stress, the more you can quantify kind of the data and put correlative factors in, the faster you're going to learn, the faster you're going to be able to get more out of the technology. So, that's why I love the Terra platform. You were the first we launched the Aura integration with. I know there's a host of companies that are partners of Terra that we look forward to working with to help kind of fast track those correlations going forward. So, you're a master at bringing lots of data in, and I want to hear your story at some point, one-on-one, just on how you got to this place. So then your last question is the future. Look, there's more analytes. Glucose has never only been the only thing for us. So we have other analytes in the pipeline. There's other things that are important to users. I think the menstrual cycle, the female body has been under researched for all of eternity. We can bring correlative factors in with glucose data and help females learn a whole lot about how to fuel over different stages of the menstrual cycle. So they can be the best in themselves 4 weeks out of the month, rather than having a bad week and not knowing why. It's like an athlete. You have a bad day, you don't know why. It's fueling the same. So now we can solve for that. So I think you're going to see a rise in consistency and power of the female athlete and probably the female entrepreneur once we help optimize glucose and metabolic health, around the clock. Other factors. I mean, Abbott's been public: lactate, ketones, alcohol, and there's other things that we want to put into these sensors and that can help our users get more value out of them. So in the future, like, this is just my dream to boil the ocean. It's my future is that this technology gets down to the kids. Like, I think every 6-year-old would benefit from using this. Every 10-year-old would benefit from using this. Every high schooler. I think CGM, it's not putting a sensor on is not going to cure your metabolic health. Right? It's the behavior change on the other side that comes. So we got a pilot study hoping to kick off in a high school in Germany to see what's the behavior change that comes in a bunch of teenagers once they see what everything does to their body. I think we can prevent a lot of disease, by helping educate people on what does what to the body from a nutritional standpoint. And look, I don't want to make the world boring. I don't want to, if you like Coke, I don't want to say don't drink Coke. But maybe if you want to have a Coke and not screw with your metabolism, maybe you understand I need to go on a run first. Or I need to go on a bike ride first. So can we help people quantify the value? Like, qualitatively, we know the value of exercise, right? Yes, it's good for you but can each person individually quantify the value of exercise in their daily life so that they have the authority to say, I have to do this. I have to do it every single day. And if that fire spreads, which I know it can, once it's quantified, then we can have an active world, an active community. We can lower the drastic health consequences that are coming from diseases like type 2 diabetes, obesity, et cetera, because most of these can be prevented. And then for those who have them, it's not going to be such a shame factor anymore, because when people without diabetes understand all the changes in metabolism that come with a functional pancreas, they got a much better appreciation for what someone with type 2 diabetes or obesity is dealing with in their metabolic disorders, even to me as a type 1 diabetic. So we can all kind of be united, and kind of the ethos of metabolism matters. And collectively, if we support each other, if we help each other be better, then we can all be better, and we can spread wealth to the world by getting the world active. And that's my dream. I'm not as naive as I was 4 years ago to think it's going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take partners. It's going to take everyone in this data industry kind of to work together to figure out how do we take all this data, manage it, organize it, and give it to a person in a silver platter so they know how to use it, be the best of themselves. And at the end of the day, that's what Supersapiens is all about. It's not being the best athlete in the world, but being the best you in the world. And that's what we want our consumers to be. That's what we try to be on a daily basis. And it's been an honor to be here with you and share an hour's worth of the story so far.
Excellent. Phil, thank you so much.
Kyriakos, thank you.